really good way of doing CRO research. In fact, the most insightful is to actually have user sessions. So you have a live session with someone, you ask them to do something on your website, and then you silently observe. And only if they get stuck do you you don't guide them, but you ask them pointed questions in terms of, what are you thinking now? What's your thought process? Why didn't you click on that? Why didn't you do this? Those sort of things. And it gives you an amazing insight into your customers. And I think they're the people you're trying to optimize for. So they're the ones that should be telling you what to do.
Welcome to the Customer Commerce Podcast, where technology's fast and biz is a blast.
In life and in business, time is precious. It's why customers stay or leave and why businesses succeed or fail. We're here to give a voice to everything that makes business, whether as a customer or as a CEO, easier and more rewarding. Welcome to the Customer Commerce Podcast. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Customer Commerce Podcast. Today, we're diving into how you can understand your customers deeply in the e-commerce world and how much of a difference it can make for your business. Featuring in today's episode is Martin Beeson, founder of Growth Affect CRO. CRO, or conversion rate optimization, is all about making your website work harder by improving the customer journey and removing friction points that stop people from buying. Or, as the Gen Zs might put it, it's removing the customer X so that they feel their experience is giving customer first. With over a decade of experience in the digital space, Martin turns maybe later visitors into where do I sign up customers. He specializes in helping businesses grow by optimizing their marketing funnels and customer journeys through data-derived insights and A/B testing, making complex strategies simple and actionable, which we are all about here at the Customer Commerce Podcast. Martin, it's so good to have you here.
Thanks very much, Jess. Lovely to be here as well. And hello, Michael.
G'day. Martin, I just want to actually kick off. I love the name of your company, Growth Affect, because I think the number one thing that people don't have any idea on, really, at the end of the day, is what is causing their growth. It's probably your number one, or what's causing the anti-growth, right? I mean, when I went to your website, I saw that you actually lead with that question: what's causing your website to leak revenue? And I guess you get that a lot. And is that how you ended up switching from your prior life to being a CRO consultant?
Yeah, good question. Detailed question as well. Thanks, Michael. So first of all, I guess like the name of the business, it's Growth Affect with an A, and it's with an A because it's influence. So, and if you have an effect on something, it's to influence something. Whereas if you have an effect with an E, it's an end result. So we can't say in definite terms that we're going to influence the end result, but there's a high probability of it. So that's why we always say it's a growth affect. So rather than effect.
It's also like a doing action as opposed to an observational.
That's right. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a definite question, and the reason that people come to us is because they want growth and they don't know what's slowing them down, and people are piling lots and lots of money into their acquisition strategy for a website, but it's not converting into sales. So I think that's highly likely the number one issue. People really want to get that return on investment from all that money that they're paying.
So when we were on the pre-podcast call, you were describing yourself as a bit of an investigator, which I love because it means that you're like fully committed to the job and not just the surface level, being like, yeah, it's your product quality images and the blah, 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 blahs. Can you tell me like when you're talking about investigating, what are the things that you're specifically investigating? Maybe give us a few things.
Investigation is basically research. So if people are not understanding where their growth is coming from or the reasons that people aren't converting on their websites, a lot of people try and make some assumptions. They'll do a quick UX review and say, well, I think it's this, and I think it's this, and I think it's this. And then go away and either test it or, even worse, just implement it. What I recommend for people to do is actually have a more structured approach to that and actually spend a good amount of time actually researching and using some of the data that you have on websites. We'll look at quantitative research, everything that's high priority data-driven kind of research. So web analytics, Google Analytics 4, Adobe Analytics, all of those different data points there. looking at behavior, drop-off points. We'll also set a baseline so that we know exactly where we're at right now. We'll use heat maps and click tracking.
What's heat maps?
I don't know. You ever seen Predator?
No, I haven't.
Like an infrared image over the top.
Blue is cold, red is hot, and all the different colors in between. And so you can see the areas of your website that are getting attention. And
Cool.
So the heat maps are sometimes called click maps because it's where people are clicking. But you can also have attention maps, which combines a scroll map, which is where how far people are actually scrolling down your site. Quite often it's a surprising amount. People will have quite a long homepage and people will only be getting 30, 40% of the way down that page. And so everything below that is kind of a bit wasted, really. And so you're maintaining it and you've probably got some really great content down there, but no one's ever getting to it. Attention maps are kind of a combination of the two. Use an online tool for all this, by the way. And an attention map will actually show you the areas that people are dwelling on. So not just where are they clicking, not just how far they're scrolling down, but they may scroll halfway down, but then there's a really good section where a lot of people are actually dwelling on as well. So that tells you, well, that's a really great area of the website. Why have we got it so far down the page when we know people are only going 30 or 40% down the page? Why don't we elevate that up? But what I would say is don't just do it, test it. Make sure that you're not actually going to do something that's going to make the website worse or make the conversion rate worse.
That's really interesting. And do you only focus on direct to consumer / B2C, high volume repeat sale goods, or do you also work on the B2B side? Or
any website can benefit from conversion rate optimization, and there are many really good B2B websites out there that are benefiting from it. So it's just defining what is a conversion. So a conversion it's literally it's an action you'd like someone to take on your website. And that might be filling in a form, for example. So a marketing qualified lead that then goes through to a sales team that then follows up. So that would be a conversion on a website. It might be even clicking on a phone number to make a call to a customer service team. And so it's not always just about going in to check out and purchasing something and it being shipped to you. A conversion can be many things, and not only that endpoint conversion, but we like to talk in terms of micro conversions all the way through the site. So you'll be aware of the different funnels in terms of you start, say, on the home page, you go to a collection page, a product page, maybe checkout or a form. Each one of those different areas and each one of those different points can have micro conversions. So you may want someone just to progress through the funnel, move from one page to another. You want them to click on a product in the collection page to move on to that product. That would be something that we can measure and actually focus on that in a test rather than that endpoint. We'll always measure the endpoint. We'll always measure how many people are actually buying. But the main goal may be, okay, we've noticed there's a lot of friction on this page and we want people to move forwards. So that's the conversion that we focus on.
Do you find there's a lot of difference between the B2B and the B2C side? I mean, the reason I ask is, obviously, we're the Customer Commerce podcast, but I also run Store Connect, which is a complete suite of e-commerce and point of sale and everything built out of Salesforce. And we have customers ranging from multinational B2B and B2C down to mom and pop stores doing B2B and B2C. And I find that a lot of the stuff on the internet about conversions is heavily skewed to the B2C side. And we have customers that go, well, do you have anything that you could recommend on a B2B aspect? I mean, how would do you approach it differently, or do you still set up the same tools, you still define the same metrics, and then you start taking a data approach? How do you actually go about that?
Yeah, definitely. We would take the same approach. So really it's about understanding your customer or consumer and how they're actually acting on the site. So whether you're a B2B or a B2C browser, you're still a human being. You're still going to react to some of the same cues on the site. You may have a different level of intent. So when you come onto a website, you have a level of intent. You're either, that top of funnel space where you're just browsing or gathering information. You may be on lots of different competitor sites. That's highly likely with B2B because at that point it's quite research heavy. So you have to take that into account. So your traffic will be different from that point of view. And you may require heavier trust signals. So things that give you trust that other people are enjoying the experience with this brand. So if it's B2B, you want to hear, so for you, people are going to want to hear, like you have on your site, and I've obviously looked at it for Store Connect. So you want to hear from other businesses that had a great experience, and you do that quite well. You have a scrolling banner that goes through above the fold on the homepage. It's visible. It's right there. You tell people exactly what you do, and then you give them some social proof, which is, people think of it in terms of Google reviews and 5 stars, but social proof is many different things. So just listing different companies that have used your product is actually a really good element of social proof. And then I noticed when you scroll down your homepage, down towards the bottom, you've actually got real reviews written by real people. There's 3 or 4 of them on there, I think, from memory. So, you're using those different elements and the trust signals in a really good way, I think. So, well done.
Thank you.
Well done, Michael.
We haven't even paid him yet. This is awesome.
I know.
You pay for this.
We got a quick review. Yeah, it's interesting, just to scratch my own itch on this, and that's sort of part of what the Customer Commerce Podcast is about. I like exploring and learning. It's been a real challenge in working out what to put on your website, especially for me running a software as a service business, because every software as a service business website is a B2B site trying to sell a product that in some cases can be an impulse buy, and in other cases is a massive investment. We actually have both. We just signed up a customer yesterday that's paying only a couple of $100s a month for the full Store Connect suite. And a few weeks ago, we signed up someone who's paying $1 million a year. I mean, that working out how do you market to both of those groups on a website, it's challenging, and trying to figure that out and communicate what to say and how to say it without just sounding like every SaaS company in the world creating the next platform of blah, blah. It's like you could almost take every SaaS website and put it into a single chat bot, and it would produce a basically the same website for all of them with just like 5 words changed. So it's been a real challenge.
Yeah, and I think repeat visits is really key for your industry as well, or B2B industries, because it does have that long consideration time. You're not going to get an impulse buy for these products. So it's really important to even identify when people are coming back to your site. So using different tools, I won't name them because none of them sponsor us, right? But if you use some of those tools that can identify when people are coming back to your site, those repeat visits. And I noticed on your site, you do have a level of personalization as well, which is really cool. You're certainly using some personalization tech on there. You've got Hotjar installed. So I'd say use Hotjar or Microsoft Clarity so that you can understand what are people actually doing when they're on your site. And within those, you can filter down to, first-time visitors, repeat visitors. So you can really get a good understanding of what is their behavior and where are they slowing down.
Jess, I'm sort of geeking out here. Sorry, I'm hogging all the questions. But you just mentioned Hotjar, and one of the things that I've noticed is there's a lot of pressure coming in Australia, Europe, especially on the GDPR laws, soon to be Australia with their new data privacy laws and things like that.
Yeah.
How do you handle that legally? Like, are these tools moving to first-party data capture, or is there a way to start getting this information without violating people's privacy by shipping it off to external companies?
Yeah, so I can't give legal advice. Do you like that?
Fair enough, you're not a lawyer.
That's a good answer.
And anyone listening, the Customer Commerce Podcast is not a legal representative, and you should consult your lawyer for any questions provided on this podcast. Having said that, what do you reckon is happening?
I reckon that these big companies like Hotjar and Microsoft Clarity, for goodness sake, I've got these sort of things covered for us. So I think we're quite safe to use these tools. However, keep the disclaimer in place. A lot of the time in terms of cookies and privacy, there's things called first-party cookies versus third-party cookies. So if it's something that's a genuine engagement, I think it's probably okay, to be honest with you. Recording people's behavior. I know there's been a few things happening in Europe around this in terms of what you can and can't record. Can't recall exactly whether it's reached a conclusion yet. But yeah, at the end of the day, these tools are recording your actual behavior, but it is anonymous. So It's not like we can point to someone's session recording and say, this mouse was moving around the screen and it clicked on this. And it's like, who cares, Well, I think who cares anyway. We had a big thing in Australia, I remember, about metadata, for example, like, don't get our metadata, it's going to be awful. But again, I think we can be a little bit precious around these things. If, for example, Google knows a lot about us, it knows what we like, what we browse, it knows what to add to servers. And actually that improves our experience. So these tools are they have the best of intentions. They're not there to make things worse. They're not there to steal anything from you. They do actually mask any personal data, which on Clarity you can add a setting and click that setting where it masks anything personal. So if someone fills out a form, it will mask all of the data so you can't see what's on the form, for example. It won't take any credit card numbers, for example, that sort of stuff. So I think it's pretty safe, and we can probably trust Microsoft and the other big tech to do the right thing, because they're having to deal with it now for Europe. So why would Australia be any different?
And so what's some underrated places on a website where conversions are quietly being lost every day?
Forms is a big one. So if you think about it, like a checkout is basically a form as well. So when we say forms, it's an area where someone's putting in some personal data. But forms can be full of friction. Shopify, for example, I used to work at Shopify. Shopify went from a 3-page checkout to a 1-page checkout. And one of the main goals there was to remove that friction of moving from page to page to page. Forms are a huge one. There's a whole CRO science around forms. For example, I talked about trust earlier. So you need to still give people trust signals to actually fill out a form. That could be a user review, for example, even just someone that's happy with your business that you actually present on the form. So they've seen all the information on the main website, but when the form pops up, that information isn't visible. So showing them like a good user review of the product or whatever, which just encourages them to go, I do actually want this. I do want to go through the pain of filling out this form. Other things like trust signals. So if there's any financial data, if it's a checkout or anything at all like that, it's showing that, it's trusted. Your data is going to be safe, for example. That's another trust signal. Lots of things like that, really.
And if there was like a business that kind of had to start from scratch, in terms of having these type of tools, is there a certain place that you would recommend that they start with fixing up or tweaking the minute you would go on their website?
The most common mistake you see?
Most homepages get most of the traffic, unless you've got a really strong advertising acquisition strategy where people are landing on collection pages and product pages, but still your homepage is going to get a lot of traffic. So I would start by looking at your homepage in a lot of detail, particularly as it loads above the fold without even scrolling. Use those tools that I spoke about in terms of looking at the actual user behavior. So people quite often ignore that. They'll go on people's opinions or the hippo, the highest person's opinions, high paid person's opinion. For example, that's another way where it's good in CRO because we do develop an entire testing roadmap and it's prioritized. When someone comes in with an opinion, you can just see where it fits within that prioritization rather than it always going to the top. So working on gut feel is something that I find is a real problem on websites, making changes without testing and then wondering where your conversion rate has gone. So the biggest issue, I think, is when people make changes to a website, they may make several changes at once. And then if there's a problem or the conversion rate dips, they don't know where or what it was that actually influenced that. So making potentially one change at a time in a controlled environment where you've got software that monitors it, and then you can see with a level of confidence whether it had a positive or a negative effect. That's what CRO testing software does, what A/B testing software does. One of the worst things that people do is making lots and lots and lots of changes, or even a complete retheme or a rebuild of a website. My advice there, which some people disagree with, would be to, if you have a website and it's performing and it's working okay, but you want to retheme or you want to rebuild it, take all of the insights that you've got, do that research piece up front, and then try and create something that's pretty much like for like. Unless something is obviously broken or the research points to it and says it's broken, don't change it. Because when you switch from one website to another or one theme to another, there's if there's so many variables that you can't point to which one it is that might be the problem. I often see websites which are launched or a new site's launched. The overall conversion rate, which isn't a good metric, but the overall conversion rate dips and we don't know what it is. It could be the paid traffic, it could be the SEO, it could be an element that's just creeped in during development that we didn't know about. It could be the user experience. It could be absolutely anything on the site that's affecting that. And the worst thing of that is the small changes that people make when you don't actually even realize that there's a problem. So you could die by a death by 1,000 cuts. So basically, you make a change, you don't realize it's affected your conversion rate, and the conversion rate slowly gets lower and lower and lower. And it's not until 6 months or 12 months' time that you're going, the website's not doing too well, is it? It's like, well, what was it that changed it? Well, we don't know. We didn't track it. We didn't measure it. We didn't use a scientific way of operating.
What's the sweet spot in terms of the time that you should take to measure that?
When you have a CRO program or a roadmap, there will be, from all of the research will be put together and you'll develop a list of insights. Those insights are then compared, and like if you see something in the quantitative analysis, you'll look at the qualitative analysis and you may see, I don't know, there's a problem with shipping or something like that. And you say, well, it says shipping here, it says shipping here. Let's investigate shipping. You might jump on the session recordings and then find out that, yes, people are sort of hesitating, or there's friction around shipping, for example. So in terms of timescales, you then build your hypothesis, you build your tests, and each test should run for at least 2 weeks. So you get 2 weekends through it, and you need enough sessions, you need enough conversions, and you need enough time. So those 3 elements. So you can get a result within 2 weeks, and that can give you ideally a 95% confidence rate that whatever you've changed will or won't make a positive or a negative impact on the site.
I got one last question for you. Is with the world moving towards less and less search engine ad driven traffic and more into AI recommendations that people find your site, is there anything you can recommend for people, or is it still just a visit for you and you just got to convert it? Like, you need to work out that conversion. Is there anything people need to do differently now in this modern age of AI recommendation as opposed to search traffic?
I think at the moment people are still trying to work that out, and it's very much an SEO thing. It's an acquisition strategy to see how that traffic is changing from being driven by Google to being driven by AI. And even within Google, it's obviously got its own AI with Gemini recommending things too. So Shopify is obviously at the forefront of that in terms of Shopify, recommendations coming through as well. So I think we need to see how it develops. But at the moment, in the same way, if you think of it in the same way that when a new Google algorithm was launched, everyone kind of panics and says, oh, how do we beat the algorithm? Well, the companies that seem to succeed are the ones that do the basics of SEO right. So they have their pillars of SEO in terms of the content and the trust and everything else that's just working. So I think if your website has good levels of content, good descriptions, good titles, things at the right length, it's optimized for SEO, and the content's really good, it's updated regularly, and it's ranking well normally, then it should, in theory, rank well on AI as well. That being said, you do see quite a few anomalies. So, for example, if you if you went into ChatGPT or any AI and said, which is the best advertising agency in Brisbane, you would get a list of some of the people you would expect, but quite a few that you wouldn't. So we're all trying to work out why is that at the moment.
Yeah, it's a big unanswered question.
It is, unfortunately. And sorry I didn't answer it.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
It's this brave new world of how do you do it, and you still have to have good content. I think
You do.
Yeah.
that old catchphrase of content is king, that still applies in the AI world. You need to have relevant, intelligent, applicable content on your site so that someone visiting gets the answers they need about your product and what makes it different and what makes it unique. The AI is going to read that just as any other human is going to.
Absolutely.
And perhaps actually give you a bit of an advantage if you are particularly unique and unknown. the AI is going to be able to find that difference. And when the client says, I need a system that can do blah, it'll come back. I mean, we've had that experience with Store Connect. I've logged in anonymously into AI and asked it, what are the top 3 platforms to do e-commerce and point of sale on top of Salesforce? And in 2 of the AIs, we came up first, like ahead of Salesforce's own Commerce Cloud solutions, because of the way that, because of the particular solutions we solve, like against the cost. And like the AI said, the Salesforce solutions are great, but they're expensive, and you might not have the budget. And this is another option for you. And, having that sort of communication, I think, is really interesting. You really need to make sure that I think it's still a content game. You need to communicate what's unique and different about you and why someone would want to use you over other options. And if you do that well, it doesn't matter if it's coming in via Google or an AI, because at the end of the day, a human still has to make that decision currently anyway. And even if the human doesn't, at some point, the AI is going to make that decision based on data that it can read. So it's going to be reading your website anyway. So anyway.
I love that we're discussing things with human and AI now. Like we're talking about customers as humans. Like we have to make that difference.
You have to make that distinction.
Yeah.
What was that stat last year? It's something like 54% of all content on the internet is AI written. And that was last year. So imagine what it's like now.
It's mind-blowing.
6 to 9 months in, it's probably way higher. What I think about AI at the moment is it seems to be, we seem to be getting very honest answers. Sometimes I'm a little too honest, but it's like the big tech hasn't infiltrated it yet and given us these sponsored results. So that's why I think, a smaller marketing agency in Brisbane can outrank one of the big boys, sort of thing. So, or big people. So I think that's one of the great things about it at the moment is it seems to be unbiased. Although I know that the creators are having to put biases into it, for example, especially with image generation, so that it doesn't appear like it's either racist or sexist or whatever else. Because I think what was the thing that I saw, if you ask it to generate an image of a judge, it would generate an image of a white male, which is not ideal considering the actual proportion of judges in America or around the world is not that. So yeah, it can be quite biased in certain ways. So they put in these artificial biases into it, which is what I understand.
Interesting. Well, Martin, thanks for joining us. Did you have any last final words or tips that you want to because I know we're definitely running out of time, that you wanted to share? Anything that you're like itching to get off?
Just listen to your customers. So the great thing about CRO or any online business is you have so much data available to you, whether it's through analytics or through any other of the research methods. I don't think I even covered 1/10 of the research methods that we do, but that's fine. Listen to your customers, analyze your reviews. You can download your reviews. You can put them into a spreadsheet. You can do keyword analysis. You can understand how your customers are talking about you. You can actually ask your customers direct. A really good way of doing CRO research, in fact, the most insightful, is to actually have user sessions. So you have a live session with someone, you ask them to do something on your website, and then you silently observe. And only if they get stuck do you you don't guide them, but you ask them pointed questions in terms of, what are you thinking now? What's your thought process? Why didn't you click on that? Why didn't you do this? Those sort of things. And it gives you an amazing insight into your customers. And I think they're the people you're trying to optimize for. So they're the ones that should be telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen to
That's
that.
our mantra at this podcast. So I don't know how many times I've said that.
Yeah, every time at the end, it always ends up, there's not some mystical other thing. It's just like, talk to your customers, listen to your customers.
Totally.
Find out from your customers. All right, Martin. Well, thanks again for joining us. Listeners will be back this time next week, but I hope you have gained some nuggets, as I like to call them, of wisdom. I will pop Martin's details, LinkedIn, website in the show notes so you can see what he's all about and get more of him. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Great chat. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you had an awesome time, leaving you with ideas on how to improve your business and wow customers. If you'd like to leave a real customer's story, head to the link in our show notes and cuss away. Love the show? please subscribe and leave a review, because that enables us to help more businesses in building real relationships with customers and grow more rapidly. See you next time.